Hey, it's Blair, the Love Guru from loveguru.net and aliennetwork.com. And as many of us here are preparing for this massive winter storm of 2026, it's making me think a lot. Well, I mean, doesn't this remind you of COVID times when all the states worked together and decided to call things state of emergencies, declare this emergency, that emergency? I already had shared in the last video how my state, Pennsylvania, had signed a disaster emergency declaration. And there's other states that have done that too: South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, New York. And then we have states that have that are listed under a state of emergency: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, Washington, D.C., New Jersey, and Indiana. So, did I list one of your states? And are you preparing for the storm? And what are your thoughts around this? I mean, I would not be a proper love guru. That is my title, after all, the Love Guru, if I didn't talk about the relationship dynamics here as far as what comes to mind. Because, this is what went on during COVID, right? You were either single and without a partner at that time, and realizing how asleep everybody around you was, and maybe had some realizations. Maybe there's some upset, maybe there was some anxiety, maybe there was some anger, maybe there was some feeling of missing out. Because were you supposed to find a partner that was awake before this whole COVID New World Order time? Right? Because now, well, we'll compare now, then and now. Back during COVID, you see all the sheep, and you're like, and this is if you're single, okay? This also pertains to those who were in relationships. Because now all of a sudden, if you're a quote conspiracy theorist, which I don't use those terms, I just say that we're in the truther community, but if you were awake, either you woke up then or you were awake before, and maybe you had a partner that wasn't on board with your crazy conspiracy theories. Well, now all of a sudden, during the COVID era, when you see all the retards wearing the masks, giving their temperature, taking the COVID tests, getting the vaccine, I mean, how incredibly unattractive is that? If you're awake, how unattractive is that to have the thought that either your partner partakes in that, or if you were single back then, it was like, okay, now I think that my possibilities of a partner are severely limited because I'm not partnering up with a retard, right? I'm not interested in being with a sheep. That equation doesn't work. Maybe for some people, sheep plus sheep equals good match. Sheep plus awake person equals friction. For you. Probably not them. Maybe that bothers them too. But most of them, that was not an issue for them. What happens is that you get to this point that and I'm talking about your evolution, you get to this point that you really feel that you need to be in alignment with everything in your life. and you can't make exceptions. So if you're a person, so now so then we just did back then, COVID, maybe that brought back bad memories for you. I mean, I can't imagine how they wouldn't be coming up now. If you're in one of those states that I read off, I can't imagine how they wouldn't be coming up for you now, because if you're awake and truly awake, you're getting prepared, or you are prepared for this snow and all that entails, the cold weather and etc. of what this may turn into. And I have resources to help educate you. If you're like, I don't really know, Blair, what you're talking about. Well, that's good. If there's curiosity there and you want to learn, I have resources on the aliennetwork.com/toolkit. And I have a lot of different weather stuff. One of the audios is like, some days you're not going to be able to go outside. That pertains to what's going on now. No one's going outside today. It's like 10 degrees out. And we're not going out tomorrow, because that's going to be another situation. And then the next day, so you're stuck inside. You better be loving where you live. And that goes from now and moving forward in this New World Order time. You better make your home a fucking palace, a sanctuary of happiness, love, peace. That you're happy to be there because you might be stuck inside. Now, this is not just for people affected with this storm, because if you're on the West Coast, well, the West Coast will be facing and has been facing fires. So, you got to kind of sort of pick what's going to work for you during this New World Order time that we're in now, moving into the future. You see it's getting more intense. I mean, I feel like shit just got real for those of us who are affected by the storm. I feel like you might have slipped back into a delusion that, okay, life is back to normal. After the Con-19, okay, everybody eases back into it. You're integrating back with the sheep. You're like, oh, okay, maybe they're not so bad. Let me talk to them again. Let me make friends with the sheep. So you're like integrating. Okay, we'll just go along. Everything moves along so slow. But no. Shit just got real, because now you're preparing for possibly power outages and whatever else. I'm not going to go into it. This is where you can look into getting the education. So I have that audio on the aliennetwork.com/toolkit. There's also an audio that these weather events are not real. That's on there. There's other stuff too. There's about digital ID, if that's the only thing you want to read up about. But this is a big topic. It includes many different facets. And today we're talking about dating, mating, and procreating in the new world. Because and I have a guide out. I'll put a link to it. It's all on the aliennetwork.com also /toolkit. Because you're going to have to figure out who, if you're single or if you're in a relationship, and again, your partner is not on board, they're fucking clueless. They're like, I don't understand what's going on here. It's just a snowstorm, honey. That's all what it is. And maybe they just want to sit in front of the internet today, or the TV, or their phone, or whatever, and tool around rather than helping you prepare, or rather able, like, you're going to have to decide, do I want a partner who's aware of what's going on in the world like I am? Or am I going to be okay being miserable and settling for someone who's just not there? Just not there. They don't understand it. They don't have the level of consciousness to get it. And that means everything that you need to prepare and consider, that's going to be all on your shoulders. Like, say you decide, bigger picture, say you decide you want to take a trip and you're dating a sheep. You're dating a sheep. okay? Or you're married to a sheep. So let's picture this. You're going through the airport. You're deciding to go through the airport. But you have a choice. You either go along with the protocols that they have, right? Which is scanning your face, which is getting the real ID if you're American. If maybe you're in another country, maybe you had to renew your passport, or maybe you chose to renew your passport and you decided to give your fingerprints. So now already in that relationship dynamic, so first off, you're either compromising your morals and your values, which I'm sorry, that does not fly for me. For me, personally, that's my decision. Okay? You're going to have to decide where you stand on these things, because we're back in the COVID era again. It's different now, but it's more intense. COVID was the warm up. Here's the real time. If you were awake back then, you had a chance to prepare yourself. Now it's showtime. So there's a big learning curve if the person that you're dating or in a relationship with or married to or whatever is a clueless sheep. So let's go back to this travel scenario. You're either compromising your morals and your values, and you're saying, okay, all right, I don't want to cause a problem, and I'm just going to scan my face so I can travel. And then you're going to justify it in your fucked up head that has unhealed childhood wounds, that you should be just healing your childhood wounds, because then you're clear and you're free and you're in your power. Your soul has grown, but you might take the weak path, and you might say, okay, I'm going to scan my face. And you go for that, or you don't want to cause your partner to be embarrassed. You don't want to delay them on the trip. You don't want to be a problem child. Maybe that's how you were labeled when you were young. Always the problem, always causing issues. Again, childhood wound that needs to be healed. If you want help, that's the work I do, loveguru.net. And again, resources on both the sites, loveguru.net and thealiennetwork.com. My books, my audios, everything. Private sessions if you want to speak to me personally and get yourself turbocharged into the transformation. Because this stuff needs to be healed and cleared up now. This is not amateur hour anymore. So then, what happens? You go to the airport and say you're like, hey, honey, this doesn't fly. I'm not scanning anything about myself. Or you can be, again, one of the sheep and say, well, where are you not being scanned these days? Oh, you're being scanned and tracked and traced everywhere. Okay? You could be one of those Muppets who talks like that, which is a victim and disempowered and super unattractive. It's unattractive to someone who's in their power and who's done their inner work and has healed themselves. It's not unattractive if you're dating or married to or in a partnership with somebody else who's disempowered. Because you guys are both going to be walking around like that of, I don't want to hold up the line, and I'm just going to follow what the herd of other sheep does, and I don't want to be delayed in my travel or inconvenienced or whatever the story is. The other element here is wherever you're going on your trips, you're going to be the one who's going to have to research what sort of tyrannical bullshit you may possibly deal with along the way. You're also going to have to be figuring it out yourself on how you're going to get through these things, because there's always a way to get through it, okay? So you're going to have to do all this research yourself rather than be in a partnership where somebody is doing this research with you, that you guys are, again, having a true partnership and collaborating. What's our plan of action? What are we saying if this happens? What are we saying if that happens? Plan A, plan B, plan C. Which way are we going with our trip? Because then what happens? You get to your new location And maybe then you're in another country. So what are their protocols in that country? Again, are you going to be the only awake one in your partnership? Is this, during COVID, I spoke to a lot of people who were awake, but their partner was not awake. And these were men, and they would complain to me, which I limited because I cannot listen to the complaints because I help people get empowered. So I'm not here to co-sign on your victim status. All right. So they would, try to complain. And I'm sorry. The only answer to that is you need to let your relationship go. It's not in alignment with who you are. And you're going to have to choose either yourself, to love yourself and to be in alignment with your values, or you're going to have a constant friction dealing with somebody who does not get it. Because then you're going to get to another location, and then what? You're going to have to you're going to either have to submit and go through whatever protocols that new country requires. Some countries require you to take certain vaccinations. You might not want to be doing that now, right? If you woke up or were awake before the COVID era, you might be like, oh, no more fucking vaccinations. You might also, again, not want to partake in any of the scanning. You might not want to be scanning your body through those radiation detector things at the airport too. So basically, what the fuck is point of being in a relationship if you're still solo riding and taking care of all these things yourself? Because then when you're on travel, and then what's going to happen? Like, you're going to maybe get to your new location and whatever country this is in, and maybe someone comes and picks you up in one of these electric vehicles. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going in that radiation machine. And how do I know that? Because, well, besides all the knowledge I have, because I teach freedom classes, freedom activist classes, and I educate about all this stuff, and I've been researching it for a long time. You can find that at loveguru.net/freedom. But I also, one time, was talking to this guy. This was like several years ago. And we were just hanging out in the country and had some spare time. Because it's a whole story. I saved a dog out in the country, and I was like just hanging out with this dog, trying to find his owner. I go on like these like interesting adventures when I leave the house. And when I was out just like hanging out with the dog, this guy stopped, and he was driving a Tesla, of course. Well, not of course, because you don't normally see that shit out in the country. That was the beauty of moving out there. You're like with real men and pickup trucks and whatever. But this guy drove through, and he stopped, and he was like, hey, do you need help? Which is nice, because that's like a country thing. Like, you're on a country road by yourself. Like, you're just deserted out there. You could be out there for like a solid half an hour, or hours on your own before someone actually comes to save you. That was, again, real lessons for me in being able to be self-sufficient. So this guy comes around, and he was like, I'll hang out with you. And I was like, all right. And we talked, and, it was an interesting conversation because I had just moved out to the country. So I was like on a high over like the sheep that were left and right. I'm talking about real sheep, not fake, not human sheep. But there was like sheep out there grazing, and it was just like, it's amazing being out in the country. There's like, you don't feel the EMFs. They're hardly around, but I walk around with my EMF reader. It's one of my things. And when we were hanging out, I said, hey, can you turn on your car? I want to do an EMF reading. And he was all excited about it because he's a sheep, right? And he was like, yeah, what are you doing? What's EMF? And I was like, okay, telling him about it. So he turns on that car, and he's like, you can sit in here with me. And I was like, no, thanks, because I'm reading it on my reader, and it's straight up to the red zone right away, which is like off the charts, even higher than what the reader can read. So that is like Cancer and beyond territory. And every day he's driving in this car, and he's putting his kids in that car. You know, we were talking about these things, and he was all like, oh, you're going to die someday. And I was like, yeah, you just, just keep sheeping along, right? But back to this other story is that, say you're on a trip with your loved one, person you're dating, and they're a sheep and you're awake. And then what happens? You call for, I guess, an Uber, which I've never done in my life because I don't put apps on my phone. Plus, I have just a burner phone. I can't even put apps on my phone. And plus, the phone's always off in a Faraday cage, a homemade Faraday cage, because I'm crafty like that. So, say you have a phone and you're calling an Uber and someone's coming to pick you up, and then lo and behold, that car is a self-driving car, which they have out in California now. I forgot what they're called, but I was watching a news report on that. And these self-driving cars, like you don't need a driver. The cars just drive themselves. They're like apparently all over out on the West Coast. So that car, say, picks you up, or say someone comes and picks you up in an electric vehicle. Now, if you're solo riding, you're the one, even though you're in this relationship, you're fucking pulling the weight because you're dating a sheep, or you're married to a sheep, or you're in a relationship with a sheep, and they don't even know what the potential problems ahead of you are. So they're not thinking 5, 10, 20 steps ahead. No. You're the one who has to put in all that that mind power. And I'll tell you, it's fucking exhausting. You cannot be able to survive and thrive this new world order if you're the one who's thinking about all these different scenarios and you don't have the support of your partner. Because what's going to happen when that electric vehicle pulls up? You're going to have to say no to your partner. Your partner might be rolling their eyes at you. Like, this is just one relationship issue after the next. Irritation on your end and on their end. So if you want help with this, I have 2 products that can support you. This official dating guide for the unvaccinated, or we could just say for the awake, dating, mating, and procreating in the new world. And I'll leave a link to that below. You can find it on the aliennetwork.com/toolkit. Or there's this other audio, Torn Between Two Worlds, what to do when everyone around you thinks you're crazy and you can't be yourself or do what you want to do during this new world order time. You may have avoided the inner work during COVID. You may have copped out and given ridiculous comments on why you couldn't do certain things or why you had to comply. You are being given another chance here to grow your soul with everything that's going on. So yes, the storm, yes, the digital ID, literally everything that's coming down the pike, you're going to have to choose what side you're on. Are you on the side of growing your soul and stepping into your greatness? Or are you going to keep with the fucked up excuses and the victim mentality and keeping yourself small? And I'm sorry, if you choose that, it's game over for you. It's game over.